My name is Michael, and for a long time, that name meant a man who built things. I built a career brick by careful brick. I built a life that seemed perfect, a home that hummed with quiet contentment, a future meticulously planned down to the last detail. Sarah, my wife, was the centerpiece of that life. Beautiful, elegant, seemingly perfect, she was the final piece in my meticulously crafted blueprint. We had the perfect house, the perfect dinner parties, the perfect understanding, or so I thought. Then the blueprint shattered. It wasn't a sudden earthquake or a violent explosion. It was a cold, slow, insidious crack that spread from the heart of our carefully constructed world. It began innocently enough, a late-night email notification on her laptop I happened to see. Nothing explicit, just a name I didn't recognize, followed by a casual remark about a shared secret. My logical mind, the builder in me, dismissed it. A colleague, perhaps, an old friend. But the seed of doubt had been planted. I told myself it was nothing, I truly did. But the quiet hum of our home began to feel like a deafening silence. The real discovery wasn't a tearful confession. It was far more clinical, far more brutal. It was a forgotten browser tab on her tablet, left open to a private forum discussing local events. An event she had told me she was too busy to attend. And beneath the innocuous event details, a series of private messages between Sarah and a man named David. The messages were sickeningly sweet, intimate, playful, full of inside jokes, references to secret meetings, shared moments. My hands trembled as I read them, my blood ran cold. The words blurred, but the meaning was crystal clear. My beautiful, perfect Sarah had built another life, a secret life, a life she shared with him. The physical sensation was like being punched in the gut, but without the immediate relief of air. It was a slow, crushing pressure that squeezed the breath from my lungs and left me gasping in a silent room. My mind reeled. Every touch, every smile, every shared laugh suddenly replayed in my head, tainted by the bitter knowledge of her betrayal. The physical sensation was like being punched in the gut, but without the immediate relief of air. It was a slow, crushing pressure that squeezed the breath from my lungs and left me gasping in a silent room. My mind reeled. Every touch, every smile, every shared laugh suddenly replayed in my head, tainted by the bitter knowledge of her betrayal. I felt like a fool, a dupe, a meticulously designed automaton dancing to her tune. The man who built things now felt utterly dismantled. The blueprints of my life lay in scattered pieces. My first impulse was to scream, to confront her, to demand answers, to tear down everything she had built with me. But then I looked at her sleeping peacefully beside me, her face serene. She deserved more than a simple outburst. She deserved a justice as cold as her calculated lies. That night, sleep was an impossibility. I lay awake in the darkness, replaying every conversation, every touch, every moment. The pain was a living thing, a searing fire in my chest. But amidst the agony, a different feeling began to take root, a cold, calm resolve. Sarah prided herself on her perfect image, her curated social life, her sharp analytical mind. She wouldn't just be exposed, she would be undone. And not by my hand directly, but by her own perceived hand. My revenge wouldn't be loud, it would be a whisper, a persistent doubt, a slow erosion of her sanity. I thought about my skills, my background in network security, my meticulous nature, my ability to understand systems and exploit their vulnerabilities. Her vulnerabilities were not just emotional, they were digital. She lived in a world of smart devices, connected apps, cloud storage, social media. Her digital footprint was immense, and I knew how to walk through it, unseen. I wouldn't hack her directly in a way that would leave a trace. I would manipulate her perception. I would become the ghost in her machine. The preparation was painstaking, Weeks of subtle observation, learning her digital habits, her routines, her favorite apps. I installed unobtrusive monitoring software on our home network, not to spy, but to understand the flow of data. I gained access to her smart home system, her cloud accounts, her email, not by brute force, but by exploiting the tiny vulnerabilities, the forgotten passwords, the default settings, the simple trust she had in our shared network. I moved like a shadow in the digital ether. My heart was no longer breaking. It was hardening. It was becoming a crucible for my carefully planned vengeance. The first few weeks were small, almost imperceptible shifts. A light in the living room she swore she turned off would be on when she came home. The thermostat setting she meticulously adjusted before leaving for work would be slightly different when she returned. She'd dismiss it as a glitch, a power surge, a faulty sensor. I would watch her from across the dinner table, her brow subtly furrowed in annoyance, a flicker of doubt in her eyes. My lips would twitch almost imperceptibly. A small victory, a seed planted. Then I escalated. I'd subtly corrupt small non-critical files on her cloud drive. A document for work would have a single paragraph missing. A spreadsheet would have a formula error she couldn't explain. She'd spend hours trying to fix them, muttering about tech issues. I'd alter timestamps on old photos, just enough to make her question her memory. "Didn't we take that picture last summer, Michael? It says last spring here." I'd offer a non-committal shrug. Time flies, I guess. The look of confusion on her face was a chilling satisfaction. The phantom notifications began. A subtle buzz on her phone from an unsaved number that vanished when she checked it. A text message from a friend she swore she received but couldn't find in her inbox. She started checking her phone constantly, scrolling through old messages, trying to verify her own recollection. Her analytical mind, the one she prided herself on, was beginning to grapple with an opponent it couldn't see, couldn't understand. She started talking to me about it. "Michael, am I going crazy? I swear I saw that message." I'd listen with feigned concern, offering calming words, while inside a cold exhilaration pulsed through me. The web was tightening. The real game began when I started manipulating her communication. I'd delete an email she vividly remembered sending to a colleague, causing minor professional inconvenience and a frantic search through her sent folder. Or I'd add a line to an old text message, a casual remark that subtly contradicted something she'd said or done, making her question her own words. Arguments began. Not loud ones, but tense, confused exchanges, where she'd swear she said one thing and I'd subtly imply she said another, presenting evidence from her own manipulated digital history. She became agitated, defensive, irritable. Her perfect social facade began to crack under the strain. Friends started noticing her distractedness, her sudden bursts of frustration. I remember one particular evening. We were at a dinner party, one of those meticulously curated events she loved. She was mid-conversation, animated, charming. Then her phone buzzed, a phantom notification. She excused herself, scrolled frantically, found nothing. When she returned, she was visibly flustered, her carefully constructed composure wavering. She couldn't focus on the conversation. Later that night, she lashed out at me, accusing me of not supporting her, of making her feel crazy. I held her gently, whispering comforting words, a devoted husband, while my mind meticulously plotted the next phase. The mask I wore was impenetrable. The culmination was meticulously planned. Sarah had a prominent role in a local charity project, one she poured her heart into. She was scheduled to give a live online presentation to potential donors, a high-stakes event for her image. It was the perfect stage. I knew she had recorded a practice run, a flawless, impassioned plea for funding. I accessed that file. I didn't alter her voice or her image. I subtly embedded fragments of text into the video's subtitle track, visible only if the user specifically enabled captions. Snippets of her secret life, her conversations with David, her frustrations with me. And I knew Sarah would never think to check the captions. She had too much faith in her own perfection, her own control. The presentation began. Sarah was magnificent, articulate, confident. I watched her from a separate room on my laptop, the live stream playing. Her voice resonated with conviction. And then, during a particularly emotional plea for support during a moment of profound vulnerability, a line of text flashed across the screen for anyone with captions enabled. "He has no idea. Our secret is safe." And later, "Michael is so boring. David truly understands me." The comment section on the live stream began to fill with questions, with gasps, with accusations. Sarah, oblivious, continued her presentation. She finished to an awkward silence. Then the calls started, texts from horrified friends, colleagues. She looked at me, her eyes wide with terror and confusion. "Michael, what did I do? What happened?" She saw the comments, the accusations, the betrayal plastered across the screen. But she didn't understand how. In her mind, she hadn't said those words. She hadn't written them. Her own perfect presentation had betrayed her. Her own memories, her own digital self had turned against her. She began to cry, not tears of remorse, but tears of frantic, incomprehensible terror. "It wasn't me. I didn't say that." She stumbled over her words, her carefully constructed image crumbling into paranoid delusion. She began to confess her affair, not out of guilt or contrition, but from a desperate need to explain the inexplicable, to make sense of the chaos her own mind seemed to have created. She believed her own memories, her own sanity had turned on her, leaving her meticulously crafted life in ruins, entirely by her own perceived hand. I watched her collapse, not with joy, not with triumph, but with a profound emptiness. The architect of revenge had finished his work. The blueprint of her life lay in irreparable fragments, scattered not by my direct hand, but by the ghost I had placed within her own machine. Her perfect world was shattered. My world was also shattered. But for the first time in a long time, the silence in my home felt less like a scream and more like a vast, echoing void. Justice had been served. But the rebuilding? That was a different story, one I still don't have the blueprints for.